to live.
Yeah.
But all right, you can record as well, Marion.
No,
You can have a contending transmission. Okay, well, hello everybody. Greetings to the Weather Action annual dinner and dance, I was going to say, but actually it's just a little sort of chat and party. And the reason for the variety of people here is because I know a variety of people. But there's a lot happening around the world, and there's more and more interconnectedness with every protest and every objection and every change. So I'm going to make a little forecast that 2018 will be the year of change. And this is 100 years after the end of the Great War, 1918, which was meant to be the war to end wars. But as you recall, it was not anything of the sort. It was the beginning of more wars. And we're going to now enter a new war, I would say, a war against the old world order of failed and false ideologies, fake science, fake news and fake politics. Really, I'm glad you agree. And, you know, although, you know, there's people here involved in campaigning against social cleansing, various political activities such as Momentum, I do weather, there's people who, do more artistic things, and loads of video types as well as science. And the problems in all of these are actually related. So I'm gonna, in the general politics picture, I think we have to understand that what's really going on, in my opinion, is that the Wall Street super corporates are really fighting for their lives against, basically against China and various just growth in Southeast Asia and East Asia and, well, most of Asia. And they want to defend their profit rates, and their way of doing it is basically wars. And, you know, that has to end. But in order to maintain their position, they propagate false ideologies all over the place. As far as the European Union is concerned, I know some people think because the word union is in it, it must be good, but I don't hold with that. I mean, I think it's a prison, really, to keep Britain in, to be super exploited, and they use the climate change ideology in order to justify deindustrialisation. And they have various standard phrases like open borders are good. Well, okay, they haven't said that until the last 10 years or so, and they only said that because they want low-income people to pour into Britain to undermine wages. That's what it's about. Yeah. And, so although everyone who comes have got to have their full human rights, absolutely, but, you know, they're sent here not to help us, but to undermine wages here and make more super profits. And this all could change in the coming year. Well, quite a lot of it, if my brother gets elected, which there could be an election, a general election in May. There could be. I mean, there's, you know, speculation on that, but the Tory government is getting increasingly weak. And round here, of course, in all the boroughs, we've got a kind of Blairite rump of councillors who are busy social cleansing and actually aiding and abetting one of the key ways in which the super rich get rich, i.e. by property values escalating. I mean, that is one route for the super rich getting rich. The super rich are not rich because they work. They do not. You can't get rich by, you know, you can't earn this huge amounts of money by work. It's nonsense. They do it by theft. The other way a lot of them get rich is actually oil companies, oil and oil price. And of course the climate change story is used to maintain oil price and hold it up. Now, I'm just saying that as sort of background politically, but to say these things are connected, you see, and the climate change issue is fundamental to the powers that be defending their position. And right now we're going to have, I think, in the next year, another bank crisis. So they're always about to loom, and of course the banks are busy printing money as a way of thieving off everybody. But I'm really interested in the cryptocurrencies, which could mean the end of banking as we know it. And I was at a big meeting in level 39 of number 1 Canada Square on Monday, where there was a presentation given there of a new form of banking, which is internet banking. It wasn't actually cryptocurrency banking, although they were sort of fully knowledgeable and interactive with that. And really very interesting. And on the cryptocurrency issue, I've been thinking about Weather Action doing an ICO, an initial coin offering, whereby essentially you can raise loads of money if your coin value goes up by issuing them and promoting them in various ways. And we could offer people coins if they come forward with good ideas for long range forecast applications, and then we do the forecast for the application, and then people see, oh my god, these people must be onto something, so therefore they would buy the coin, and then eventually I would sell the coin. Well, that's an idea. It might be very grandiose and so forth, but I did put it to one of these guys in level 39, and he was extremely interested and said we'll have a meeting about it, which is really good if that happens. Now, you know, it could be airy-fairy nonsense, and it's not at this point in time a substitute for getting farmers to buy things, which they're going to have to do whatever. So now I want to talk about related science going on, right? There's a lot of science stuff going on, and there's big changes afoot. So first of all, I'll just say a few things about Weather Action. We've made a lot of advances this year. As you know, it's solar activity coming from the sun, magnetic and particle effects, modulated by the moon, the motions of the moon. And we've made more advances on the lunar modulation recently, which have been very important. One is we now understand a lot more about when the moon crosses the magnetotail. That's the tail of magnetic stuff coming out of the Earth, pointing away from the sun. And so the moon goes through the magnetotail at, well, an eclipse of the moon, definitely, but full moons it does that. So there's important things happening there which we can see in historical data, just sudden changes, which are really very interesting. And I'm going to show the world in a minute with this one. Now, there's two matters which are related to this. You see, the way we're going to get forward in the world, I think, for Weather Action, given that there's hostility from academia because our ideas don't fit in with the man-made climate change theory, we're doing a book. Philip Foster and Peter Gill sent their apologies today, but we're going to do a little book, and the provisional title is Prince Warming and the Bad Climate Fairy. Now, this is an interim. That's what he's called it here. Anyway, it's about Prince Charles's gobbledygook nonsense, which was written by professional climate scientists on his behalf. And so we're doing a combat of it. And it was published by Ladybird, but we're doing a bigger one because the Ladybird books gets lost on the shelves. We're doing that, and the idea is once we've done that, we could then prepare to publish the Solar Lunar Action Technique in full. Pretty well in full, so that the world will know what we actually do. Because although I am going to live to be 108, I want to be around when people know about it. You see what I mean? And the things about the Solar Lunar Action Technique is much more than about the weather. I mean, it does have implications for galaxy formation, for example, because of transmission of angular momentum and such like. I mean, this is pretty difficult to explain right now, but the point is the Solar Lunar Action Technique represents a real paradigm shift in physics, right? And on paradigm shifts, I want to bring forward some new ideas. But in order to propagate all this stuff, Ivan has come up with, well, he's been talking about this for years and now decided to do it. We want to set up and this is a provisional name, the Independent Institute of New Science and Critical Analysis, which would include people who can do peer-reviewed. We can do our own peer-reviewed publications. We can criticise anything from a proper, qualified person view, and even have a think tank and so forth. Because all the think tanks around the world now are just agents of various interest groups, 100%. When one of them, if you know who they are, you know what they're going to say before they've opened their mouths, right? They're not analysis, they're not independent in any sense whatsoever. We would have people with different views involved, so long as they were knowledgeable and qualified to speak. It's not to say that a lot of people that, well, there's quite a lot of people who are knowledgeable that I would say are not really qualified to speak because they are corrupted. But that's the basic idea. And we'd be combating, obviously, all fake science. Now, I want to put forward a couple of just little things about recent fake science and also advances in science. And there's one over there in the corner. I've explained that, before we do the new ideas on SLAT, first of all, a lot of you might have heard of the so-called effect of cosmic rays on the climate, right? The idea is the sun blocks out cosmic rays. Cosmic rays, when the sun is magnetically active, less cosmic rays come because they get directed away. Less cosmic rays means that less clouds form. So because the cosmic rays will induce clouds. So you've got this relationship where they're saying that cosmic rays are the crucial thing connecting the Earth and the Sun. However, it is nonsense, because if that was true, what you'd have to see is an 11-year cycle in world temperatures, because the solar activity, that is the magnetic amount of magnetism, goes with 11 years. However, it's not seen. What you have is a 22-year cycle. Now, it's astounding they've been talking about this for 20 years and talking complete nonsense, and it's even been pointed out, but nevertheless, the nonsense carries on. The reason why it carries on is because the warmists like this idea, because they can shoot it down as being poppycock, and then say all the stuff to do with solar activity is poppycock, because the main idea is nonsense. Well, the main idea is nonsense because it is nonsense. And the reason why it's nonsense is there's 300 times more energy of particles coming from the sun than the cosmic rays. So basically the idea is 99.7% nonsense. Okay. Now I want to show you some new ideas about solar lunar action technique, which you can see why we are new in a number of ways. The first thing to understand is that standard meteorology doesn't involve solar activity whatsoever. So everything outside is nothing, and everything that happens on Earth is powered by what happens on Earth. The weather predicts the weather. The weather decides weather. Right. What we have here is the idea of the jet stream. This is the jet stream, a fast wind that goes around the world, and it moves around. Under standard meteorology, it moves if it gets colder here, then it's going to get longer, and if it gets warmer here, it'll shrink up here, because the upper part here is where it's cold, you see. So the average world temperatures then decide where the jet stream is. We say, no, this is nonsense. There's other things that decide where the jet stream is, and that will change world temperatures. Because, you see, what we have is when there's low solar activity, the jet stream gets longer, waves around more, and moves south, right? So it's caused by the sun. Now, when it moves south, think about what happens. The area where things are cold increases, and the amount of snow cover increases. The reflectivity increases. So the radiation from the sun is then reduced. So they just talk about radiation from the sun doing things. Well, radiation from the sun's important, but its modulation is important. So, I think we have, just go back 2 of these. Right, so standard climate theory will say heat in, world, heat out, and you just have some equations. I mean, obviously they're about reflectivity and lots of stuff, but you basically say in equals out, and the out, how much radiation comes out depends on the surface temperature. You solve it for T. However, all their predictions fail. What we say is something different. You see, and in this model, where the jet stream is depends on this temperature, right? Whereas we say the temperature depends on where the jet stream is. So what actually is happening is solar particles come in, move the jet stream, and if the area goes up, there's more snow and reflectivity, and that will then reduce the radiation in, so it gets colder. So in the diagram, solar activity moves the jet stream, and in the case of solar activity going down, say, the jet stream will go south, and reflectivity will go up because there'll be more snow, and therefore the light coming into Earth, the radiation, the main energy, will go down, and that will make even more snow. So there's a feedback mechanism, a magnification of this process, and then you do actually solve for T, yes. You have the new input lower equals some output, but it's got to be averaged over time, and you'll get a average temperature out, you see? So that's our fundamental difference. And the basis of it is a paradigm shift on ideas. Now, there is another new idea around, or a purportedly new idea, which is not actually a paradigm shift, but a paradigm correction. And this is from Ned Nikolov and Carl Zeller, who I met when I went to America in 20, I don't know when it was, 2008, something like that. And they talked to me about their idea. I said, great, it's obvious, just do it. What they say is, look, the amount of air on the Earth is a fundamental thing which controls temperatures over long periods of time. Because as you go up in the atmosphere, the temperature goes down. The upper part of the atmosphere has to be in equilibrium with the sun on average, so that determines the temperature of the upper atmosphere. If the atmosphere is very thick, as you go downwards, it's going to get warmer and warmer, the surface temperature will be more. So that is why Venus is very hot, because it's got tons and tons of atmosphere. And in the past, there was more atmosphere, and it was warmer, generally speaking, and the atmosphere was so dense that pterodactyls could fly. But if pterodactyls were here now, they would not be able to fly. The atmosphere is about half the density it was as then. But they explained this, but it was already known, but they put it forward as a new paradigm, which is probably upsetting the warmists. Well, half the warmists never even knew it was true anyway. Others of them thought, well, yeah, but hang on, we learnt that in Physics 1, but, well, we've just forgotten it now, and we tell you it's climate, it's CO2. But they're making good headway, though, and it's brilliant what they're doing. And there's Connor here. I want to mention Connor, who he's got this plan that Africa is North Africa. The amount of rainfall there has been decreased by the damming of the Nile. Aswan.
It's a climatic chain reaction.
Yes.
Which has resulted in the expansion of the Sahara Desert, which you know of, but it's largely a reduction in the equatorial weather system operating in that region, called the African Easterly Wave System.
Excellent. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's excellent. I don't know if you had, but the point is, it's an alternative to the idea that CO2 is running every goddamn show there is. And he's been to various people who do understand stuff, but give him the cold shoulder because it doesn't fit in there.
It doesn't pay the rent.
It doesn't pay the rent. It doesn't pay your rent either. No, I know. But see, there are other things around where I've just noticed recently that the effect of man in local ways is being ignored. I saw something on Twitter only a few days ago where it's been argued that increase in wheat growth, wheat in America has caused I think they say it's cooling because of the more reflectivity of the wheat crop as opposed to, say, woodland, you see. Interesting stuff. But so I think, you see, what Connor's doing will, you know, can change the way people are thinking, and very important. And there's a third thing I want to mention, which is really extremely exciting, but unfortunately he's not here. Mike McCulloch, he's got a Twitter thing called New Edge Physics, where what he's doing, he's come up with some very interesting ideas about what happens at the edges of galaxies, and basically says there's a new way of understanding forces, where he sort of talks about information waves as big as the universe, right? This is a bit mind-boggling, you might say. But it does come up with answers. And for example, if it can provide a 1/r force between bodies, as well as the 1/r squared of normal gravity, then you can explain why, as you go outwards in a galaxy, the speed of particles just becomes flat, and the size of most galaxies are all about the same. I won't go into it in any more than that, but it's really quite exciting stuff, and he thinks it could be connected with the workability of fusion, cold fusion. I don't know if this is true or not, but that's what he says. And I see some people saying, "You don't believe me?" No, you don't say that. No. If it's true, of course, what he's putting forward, I mean, it's been around a while, but it's gathering momentum, dare I say, because he's getting results which appear to work. Now, but again, you see, in the field of physics, this is, although it's nothing to do with global warming, it does upset certain established views in physics. And in my opinion, the rate of progress of physics is being severely curtailed by just the way it's structured, and indeed all science is structured. You see, I saw something recently, and someone said, how come there haven't been any new basic ideas in physics since Einstein? Or well, maybe not Einstein, but Niels Bohr, you know. Well, hang on, that's true, you know. You had this sort of gap. And I think the reason is more and more because the academia are essentially corrupted into whatever goes, and what doesn't go is stopped. And the Royal Society is a professional body of back scratchers. You know, I mean, I've known people in there who basically, off the record, they say, oh, they're talking there is complete crap. But they're not going to stand up, you know. It's look here, Professor, you're doing well, you're doing fantastically. And then, oh, so are you, John. Yeah, so are you, John. So they all scratch each other on the back and don't criticise each other in public, when people outside the box have got plenty to say. But when some of us went to the Royal Society, big discussion meeting, and we put forward a number of things, and we put them right on the spot. Their answers were nonsense, and we looked in the minutes of the meeting. This was a Royal Society open discussion meeting. There was nothing there, completely nothing there. It was like being in Russia under Stalin at the Russian Academy of Sciences. If you said something out of line, what you said wasn't there, and quite likely you wouldn't be there either next time. We haven't been executed yet, but you know, this type of approach holds back science, and we've got to break out of that, which is what the Academy, if we get it off the ground, can do. Now, we've got completely no money, but an ICO could help, of course, but that might take time. But the other thing is Ivan, who has an amount of money, is going to be funding the book to make sure it definitely gets out, along with Philip Foster, their first book. And he's got some way of getting hold of a building. So if we want to have a building, which presumably he'll own, but you know, it's a building, we can hold events in there to promote these alternative ideas. Okay, well, I'm about to finish now and say, I think the message of all this is, and this is especially for young people in momentum and older people in momentum, that things are not what they seem. and that's going to be especially true this year. And I've noticed in Momentum there are people more who are questioning all the sort of given ideas that, you know, the European Union is good. Okay, not so sure now, you know, after Greece you think, oh, they're eating grass, that can't be good. But the point is there is more questioning, but there's got to be loads more questioning. We've got to question everything. You see, my own beliefs on a whole number of things have changed radically in the last 10 years, you know. When I went to Imperial College, it was, oh, science was good. As long as you did science, the world would improve. Well, hang on. I've discovered science itself has got a political dimension, and it can be completely used against people. Or fake science can be used against people, but the public don't know the difference between fake science and evidence-based science. So, the front lines in all this stuff, I would say, are the carbon dioxide con, which I think is used as a very big belief system to brainwash and corral people into all sorts of things, as I said, reduction of wages, deindustrialisation, and so forth. And there's a whole lot of other sacred cows in fake academia which will have to be destroyed, you know. I mean, I know from my experience in astrophysics that, you know, there were lots of religiously held ideas which were like completely opposite to each other, but you couldn't often get discussions between them because maybe grants, I don't know, egos, I'm not sure. So I will end by saying then that we have to now fight for evidence-based science and politics and total accountability in all things. Thank you.